I'd like to call the special meeting of the JRIB to order. It is 7:05 p.m. Chris, if you could please begin the recording. Maybe she dropped off.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, terrific. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being here. I want to do a quick roll call, if you don't mind. We have Jack Mahoney. Thought I said Jack.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, here.
Eric Newman. Yep, you're here. Scott Pollock, I see.
Here.
Okay. Kevin Shadeen. I think I saw you here. Russ Atkins. You're
Here.
here.
Yep,
Chris
I'm here.
Brand.
Sorry.
Chris Brand, I see you. Brenda, I see you as well. And I'm Carolyn Trabucco. We have a full house from the town side, the Employee Retirement Board. Police and Fire, Nick Caruso.
Present.
Present. Tom McCarthy.
I'm here.
All right. Bruce Ryan. No word on Bruce. Eric Caliper.
Yes, ma'am.
Walter Burke. No Walter tonight. First Selectwoman Brenda Kupchik and Jared Schmidt, our CFO.
Here.
Is here. Okay. Perfect. We have a near full house. Why don't we? I can just kind of give you a sense of how tonight's meetings will go. We've got 3 finalists to our RFP for our actuary. We'll have a presentation, allow for Q&A, and I'd like to take a short break while we line up the next presentation. Q&A, we'll take a short break, then we go to our 3rd presenter, allow for Q&A, and then this board will go into executive session to have a discussion about the particulars, and then we will come out of executive session and we'll take action as necessary. Hope that works for everyone. Look forward to the presentations. Stefan and Mark from Hooker and Holcomb, you're here. Do you have a presentation you would like to share with us? In which case, please feel free to put it on the screen.
Okay. Did you want us to wait till 7:15? I log in because sometimes I have problems getting on. So
you're on. We're ready for you. We are a very efficient group of people here on the JRIB. We are
one of our members isn't on yet. I don't see her on there yet. So that's what I was just saying. But I can put it up there for you.
Yep.
1 sec.
We're happy to wait a few more minutes.
Let's see. So if I share, I think this is it. Do you see the presentation?
We do. Thank you.
All right. Is that big enough? Hopefully everybody can see clearly.
Yep. I think it's plenty large on my screen. I don't know if anyone else.
So let me see.
Right now.
All right. Barry, I'm going to send the other person an email quickly. Let's just have her join right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Hi, it's Ellen Kaczynski. Are you waiting for me?
Oh, we were. There she is. I guess I don't need to send the email.
No, I just logged on. Took a minute longer than I thought it would. I had to download something, but I think I'm good.
Okay. So are you ready to start, Ellen?
Yep.
All right, guys,
All right.
take it away.
All right. Well, first off, we'd like to thank you all for letting us come tonight in front of you. I thought we were going to be in person, but obviously that got nixed last second. We like this opportunity. We welcome it. And we're going to talk a little bit about Town of Fairfield, both the past, the present, and the future of your pension plans, because that's what's really important with your group. I'll introduce the leadership team. You've met me several times before. I'm Stefan Chakurta. I've had over 25 years of experience. And, when you work that many years, you end up having a diverse, clientele where you've worked with all sides of clients. Tend to focus mostly on municipalities these days. So we obviously have a kind of a background of what I've done. The second actuary that's going to be assigned in this case is Ellen Kaczynski. She is
Hello.
our pension practice lead. Is that something? She's our pension practice leader. She has over 16
Yeah,
years
no, I'm all
experience. Again, she works in the public, primarily in the public sector. She has a lot of expertise again with, funding
He's on-
valuation, expense reporting.
He's on the call here. I just saw his name somewhere.
Hi, guys.
Do I need to
If I could ask everyone to mute their phones if they're not presenters.
I did.
Okay.
I just did.
So that was Ellen. A third person that's not on this list is who I think is very important to the team is Brian Middendorf. He has over 20 years experience. He is the senior pension analyst on this plan. He's actually worked on this plan probably over 15 years. So I think besides Cheryl Lynch, he probably has more knowledge on the history of this plan and what's gone on throughout the years. The third person that will speak tonight is involved in our pension administrative services. That's Mark Condon. He has over 30 or nearly 30 years of experience in both the pension world as well as pension administration. He manages a team that will help, with the pension administration solutions. So, and on top of all that, we are supported by a team of crack staff that is all dedicated to the success of your plan and helping you manage your pension plans. With that, I'm going to let Ellen speak a little bit about Hooker and Holcomb.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellen Kaczynski. It's nice to meet you all, virtually at least. Hopefully at some point we will be able to meet in person. So I know you all have been a client of ours for a good number of years. So I think some of this information about Hooker and Holcomb is probably just going to be a refresher, but if there is anyone new to the board, we do want to just give you a little bit of background about H&H and who we are. So we are an independent, privately held firm. We're located in Bloomfield, Connecticut. All of our employees work out of our Bloomfield office. For the past year or so, like many other firms, we've been working mostly remotely, but we do all have dedicated desks and computers in Bloomfield. And what you see on the right-hand side of this slide here are the different branches of our firm. So we have the actuarial services side, which I think you all are probably pretty familiar with. You've used our defined benefit and OPEB consulting services on the actuarial side for a good number of years now. Some of the bullets listed under the actuarial services, I think we have done for Fairfield plan design, experience studies. Those are items that we have a lot of experience with. Very closely tied to the actuarial services department is our pension administration unit. And as Stefan mentioned, you're going to hear a lot more about that a little bit further into our presentation. But so the online pension administration is exactly what it sounds like. We administer pension plans, and that group works very closely with our actuarial department to ensure very smooth operation of your plan. In addition, we have the retirement service group, which provides consulting on defined contribution plans and record keeping. And then we have an investment advisory arm to our firm as well, which provides investment services for DB, DC, and OPEB plans. So pretty much anything related to pension consulting, one branch of our firm does handle. So can you flip to the next slide? Thank you. So this chart shows very nicely our presence in the Connecticut municipal space. We do have quite a large presence in the state of Connecticut. We're very proud that 46% of Connecticut municipalities are H&H clients. So the cities and towns that you see shaded in green there, we have relationships with. They are clients of ours, and roughly 1/3 of our actuarial clients are in the Connecticut public sector. So we have a lot of experience in Connecticut, do a lot of work in the state, and are very familiar with Connecticut municipalities, Fairfield included. And the next slide. And a little bit about H&H. We do support our community. As I said, we're a local firm. We support local businesses, local charities. We at the firm offer usually a couple of times a year, not over the past year, but prior to COVID. And again, when we're able to, we offer volunteer days to employees where they can volunteer at either a place like Fidelco or Food Share. And we do have a lot of interest in that among employees where they can go out, volunteer their time, and the company gets involved as well. So very, very much into supporting the community at H&H. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Stefan to speak a little bit more about Fairfield specifically. Stefan, I'm not hearing you. Are you on mute?
Sorry, I didn't want to disturb you. Okay, we're going to talk about the past, present, and future of Fairfield. So as your current actuary, we have assisted the town in many ways, more than I could possibly list on this one slide, but we're going to talk about a few of the bigger ones. First, one of the big ones was the financial crisis of 2008. And I don't know if you recollect that, but that was kind of what we call the perfect storm of things that can go wrong. And that was a drop in the discount rates, long-term investment rates, as well as the market kind of crashing due to the housing crisis. So that was a big deal for a lot of municipalities, and their contribution requirements skyrocketed. On top of all that, you also had issues with one of the funds you guys were invested in. So we helped that, and what came about with some of that, that kind of downturn was, to look at different designs as well as plan changes to the plan. And of that came, they ultimately decided to close the town pension plan to new entrants. So we worked over a period of years to close the different unions, not all at once, but more of a stepwise, closing of the plan. And then again, 2004 and 5, there was another thing that came about, and that was that you now had to start to report your OPEB liabilities. And those benefits happen to be, post-retirement benefits. Before 2005, you never had to account for them on your balance sheets. So now all of a sudden, that had to be part of the financial footnotes that the finance director, Jared, would have to put down in their reports. And then most recently, there was the implementation of new rules under GASB. That was kind of a big undertaking, as they basically went from a one-page snapshot to a full-blown report of information that they were now requiring. And that took a little bit of a learning curve and getting everybody up to speed, working with the auditors as well as the finance director at the time to make sure they were getting all the information they needed to satisfy those requirements and include that information in their CAFR. So more subtle things that we have done was experience studies. We did 3 of them, 2008, 12, and 17. That's where we kind of look at all the current assumptions being used to measure your pension liabilities and kind of revamp them to make sure they're in line with actual experience. So, we periodically would do that. On top of that, we also provided many benefit calculators for determining your retirement benefits. And that was a big deal because all your unions have different kind of benefit structures, so that we provided to the HR department, and that helps them to do the calculations that they need to do. Most recently, we helped with the early retirement incentive plan that you had last year, and we did many iterations of that. On top of that, we did modify a benefit calculator to kind of account for multiple options of what they may offer to these people to get them to go out early. And on top of all that, over the years, we have helped with the transition of staff members. We work quite extensively with the finance director, so that we've had experience with Paul Hiller. Then we moved on to Bob Mayer, and now, in the past year, I've been working quite a bit with Jared Schmidt. We help them get up to speed, in that transition to make sure things go smoothly and there's no kind of hiccups or nothing gets lost in the shuffle. So what have we been doing now? What we will continue to do. We'll continue to provide your funding reports, both for funding as well as financial reporting, which that tends to be a bigger deal in the fall. We always want to make sure we help you understand key assumptions as well as any plan changes you may be contemplating. We do provide yearly COLA letters, updates for all those people currently in pay status, what their benefit's going to go up. So each year, you may or may not know that they get a COLA based on CPI, and it's capped at 3%. In the fall, we help with the preparation of budget estimates for the upcoming fiscal year, because that occurs. They want to start planning before we actually have the funding valuations completed. We also want to make sure we continue to keep the town updated on current market trends, as well as, future expectations, what may occur in the market, how it's going to impact what they may have to fund going forward. We always want to pride ourselves as being able to quickly respond to any, questions or inquiries in regards to the effect that will help on the funding of the pension plans. So it's not uncommon that I get a call where all of a sudden we need something, either today or tomorrow. So we're always able to quickly respond to those kind of inquiries. We want to make sure we can always provide updates to the various boards, and originally we only really presented to one board, then it became two, now it's 3 to 4 boards. So it's kind of grown over the years. And then what we also did this past year was we created pension benefit statements for the first time. These were much more robust than what the participants had been used to. It was very well received by the people that got them, and it also provides a good way to kind of audit the data that we're getting to perform our valuation work. Going forward, kind of an overview, we want to make sure we follow the best practices in regards to assumption setting as well as, funding methods. We want to stay on top of that, make sure, the plan's doing everything right and up to date. We want to make sure there's assumption awareness. There's always pros and cons to every choice you make, whether it's good or bad. We want to make sure you're well informed so you can make an educated decision on that. We know it's very important that the town maintains its current funding levels. They want to be 80% funded, when they put that information in their CAFR. They want to maintain that AAA rating. So that means they want to stay on top of the assumptions, making sure they're using what is appropriate at that point in time. We like to continue to work with the different boards, the JRIB as well as finance and RTM. In the past, I had never really met the RTM. This past year, I think I've spoke with them 4 or 5 times at least. And as you know, all your boards tend to have turnover. So we often offer, training sessions, whether it be a formal presentation or a simple question and answer session. Those seem to be well received. I think it's very informative. It kind of keeps you up to date, because if you only see this information once a year, it's important to kind of reaffirm that knowledge so you're staying on top of things. And going forward, what do we see? We see that a lot of plan sponsors these days are starting to look at different ways to manage their plan. And of that, they're kind of looking at pension administration issues. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mark so he can kind of talk through some of that.
Thanks, Stefan. My name is Mark Condon. I head up Hooker & Holcom's pension administration practice. Hooker & Holcomb has been doing pension administration services for well over 10 years. We have over 30 clients with the full suite of services. About half of those are municipalities. We have municipalities ranging on up to over 2,000 participants. Most of those municipalities are in the state of Connecticut as well as throughout New England and a couple of clients a little further south. And then the other half are corporate clients. We have corporate clients that range up to about 7,500 participants. So, we can see complex plan designs. We've seen, numbers of different divisions and benefit formulas and all that, and none of that has caused any issues for us. We have a lot of expertise in this area. Most of our clients come to us looking for some help administering their pension plans, and they tap into our extensive expertise. You see here on the slide our new character that we're kind of excited to roll out. He's named PIM, that stands for Pension Information Manager. We're kind of rolling him out as a way to get the word out. So you may see him in some of our marketing materials and brochures, and we plan to use him for training, documents, et cetera, in the future. Next slide, please. So the core of our administrative services offering is our Pension Edge portal. Basically, it's a web-based portal that provides access to plan sponsors and to participants so that they have their particular pertinent pension data at their fingertips. They can run modeling of retirement benefits, 24 hours a day. All you need is a computer with a web browser, and there's a website that you go to and log into. So there's no special software to download or anything like that. We do all the programming in-house at Hooker & Holcomb. So it would be customized to your pension plan particulars, and so your participants would actually be able to model their individual benefits, their retirement benefits. They can run unlimited scenarios, all that stuff. It's a secure database. We take information security very seriously. You know, things like two-factor authentication and such. And we do a lot of testing to make sure that it stays secure, that no one can access participants' information that's unauthorized. It's also kind of a warehouse for documents, so document storage. Participants can kind of see their information at a glance on benefit statements. Any kind of messaging that you want to do as a plan sponsor can be stored here as well. And we do keep it up to date with any any changes in the pension world as far as regulatory or legislative. And obviously, with union negotiations, we would keep that up to date for any union negotiations and benefit changes that occur through that. You'll see here to the left, basically it's a screenshot of our login page. So that kind of gives you a visual of what it looks like as you enter into the portal on the website. Yeah, next slide. So we like to say it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. One, we talked about the portal. The portal, again, comprehensive database for all plan participants. Plan sponsor level, you can see every participant's information and run any participant that you like. At the individual participant level, they'd be able to run their own benefits, seeing their own data in there as well. Again, 24/7 access, estimates and projections, storage of personal documents like benefit statements, administrative forms. If they want to actually see what their retirement forms, their election forms would look like, that would be on there as well. And then also as part of that, we do annual terminated vested death audits to make sure participants that may have separated from service but are still entitled to a benefit, we can track them down and make sure that they're aware of a pension benefit. And if any of them have died, we can, talk about any kind of death benefit processing that might be available. And then we provide full training and support for you and your participants as well. So that's the portal. The second piece of that, the second module in this offering is benefit calculation services. So that takes it up a level from being able to model your retirement on the screen to actually, now I want to retire and I want a formal, final, certified benefit calculation. So what most of our clients do is they choose the full service model. Basically, this means that we, Hooker & Holcomb, will run the calculation. It will be audited and reviewed by Stefan and his team and certified, and we would then produce all the forms, the election forms. We would mail those to the participant. That would have all the forms that they would need to fill out to initiate their retirement benefit. And then, of course, we have this feature called the Work Track feature, which allows you as the plan sponsor to kind of track the progress. So you can see when someone has initiated a request for retirement, and then you can see when Hooker & Holcomb has completed the calculation. And each of these trigger an item in our Work Track that you'd be able to see through the portal, but also triggers emails to whoever you designate to receive notification of these occurrences. So every step of the way, you know where the process is, and you can kind of keep track of that as well. Some of our clients choose the self-service model. This is where basically you as the plan sponsor would maintain control over the entire process. Hooker & Holcomb would kind of take a step back, and basically everything would sort of be push button, and you'd be able to run the calculation yourselves, print the statements, print the forms, provide them to your participants directly, and then you would kind of run the whole process of collecting the forms and then sending them back to us to initiate a payment for the retirement benefit. We see that far less often. I think most of our clients tend to prefer having Hooker & Holcomb involved in the full service model. So this is all done through the portal as well. And that's the second step. And if we move to the next slide, the third piece of the module, or the third module in this whole equation, is participant services. So, a lot of what I've talked about are really catering to the plan sponsor, that's you, and your team, but at the participant level, you can add participant portal access, as I mentioned. That would allow participants to be able to view documents, to run their retirement scenarios 24/7, unlimited, no additional charge for running hundreds of scenarios if that's what they choose to do. And of course, they can request final benefit calculation and forms when they are actually ready to retire. But the other important piece to the participant service level is our H&H Service Center. It's a fully staffed, fully licensed call center. We've got pension experts on the phone ready to take calls from your participants, answer any questions, help fill out forms, help explain benefit options, basically kind of handle all the administration of the forms as well. So when participants do make their elections and send them back to us, our service center would handle the forms and process them and make sure that they get put into pay status by working directly with the custodian. They are experts in the website navigation, so any questions about website navigation as well. For anybody that's in pay status, a retiree that's actually getting monthly checks, if they want to make changes to their, let's say their withholding or an address change, they're able to do that, beneficiary changes, what have you. So they can kind of help with all of that. And they can help set up a surviving spouse benefit if there's a retiree death. They can call trying to find missing participants. They do handle income verifications, et cetera. So it's really a kind of a full service center, call center. It's staffed all day long. If participants choose or are more comfortable communicating via email, they can send emails instead. So there's an email box that is 24-hour turnaround time. So whatever is the preference of the individual, if they would rather talk to someone or if they'd rather just take care of it through email, any questions can be answered that way. So that really kind of defines our full administrative offering. In closing, I'd just like to say thank you for your time. And you'll see here that we do have a demo available. So I'd love to have the opportunity to show you or anyone that you designate a live demo. We can do that virtually through WebEx like this, and would look forward to doing that for you. So thank you for your time, and take care.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I kind of want to follow up, what our pledge to the town of Fairfield is. We want to remain flexible. We have and will continue to adapt and conform to what the town's needs or the retirement board's needs. We want to make sure we're able to help you out with whatever it is that you require of us. We want to make sure we all have one goal, whether that's the board, the town, or H&H, that we're all working towards the same thing, and that's really to serve the plan participants as best we can. We want to make sure that we can manage the plan both efficiently and as well as effectively. We want to make sure we have a strong relationship. We know you guys, we know your processes as well as your plans. We have, a good amount of historical knowledge. So we want to look forward to building our existing relationship with you guys. And then, as Mark was just talking about, tools for the future. Our pension administration is an efficient and cost-effective way to manage your pension plan. And what we see today with plan sponsors, that they're starting to look at that as, as their workforce ages, especially as people that are involved in HR services, that, they may not be able to, supplement that talent that may walk out the door with all that history of knowledge. So they may want to unload some of that responsibility. So there is a smooth transition and there's nothing lost over time. So overall, I want to end this, kind of think that we will work together with you as well as the town. And we want to always identify your challenges as well as opportunities to how we manage that pension plan. So make sure we achieve your goals. And, we always want to exceed your expectations if possible. So with all that, I want to thank you for your time. And, we're here now ready to answer any questions you may have in regards to the information we just presented to you.
Great. Thank you. If I can ask you to take your screen down so that way we can see everyone. I just have one technical question, right? The services that you currently provide to the town are on the valuations and the GASB reports, right? Not the pension administration services.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's
Yeah,
a whole
I think in the
separate-
article you asked for some additional services that we may potentially be able to provide with you.
Right,
So
but the specific the specifics of the RFP was really regarding the pension valuations, the OPEB valuations, the reporting requirements that we have for that. Okay, so so all of that other stuff is like maybe later.
Correct.
Love to open the floor to anyone who may have some questions of Hooker and Holcomb. Chris? I think you're muted. Nope. No, can't hear you. Looks like you got to put on your headset, maybe. Would anyone else like to ask a question while Chris is getting his?
No, I have a quick question.
Sure, Tom.
I think I saw in your deck that you were responsible for implementation of changes following new GASB rules. Did I read that correctly? And if so, how would H&H actually execute or implement changes on the town side in the wake of new GASB rules?
That was what happened back in 14-15, that there was, GASB rules changed and how you had to report information on your financial footnotes. And that Jared can certainly attest to that, what he has seen and what he's required to report. So we helped that. We designed a report that made sure it had all the information that was now going to be required under GASB. So if there's any changes going forward in the future that GASB may release and that they may want you to follow, we would obviously adapt to those, our report to that, so that you have the specific information you need to complete your financial footnotes.
Okay, so you provide both the framework and the data required to fill the new requirements. Is that fair statement?
Yeah, if there was a new statement, we would make sure we understand the new rules and provide you information that you're going to be able to fulfill that requirement that's required of you in reporting. So we would be kind of like the intermediate vehicle under the new rules, make sure you have the information to, again, there's no rules change because they just changed the bit overhaul, but that doesn't mean they won't change them going forward, right? So we just want to make sure that you're aware that we do help you in that regards.
Okay.
Okay, Chris, you want to give it another try?
Am I back? Can you hear me now?
You can hear you.
Much better. While I do appreciate the existing relationship you guys have with Fairfield, would we have an independent voice within your organization that would be in the interest of our board in situations where there might be, a situation where maybe there's a conflict between what the town situation is and ours? And how would we guarantee that would be an independent voice within your organization for our interests?
So the way I like to look at that, and I know we've had some hiccups in the past year with everything, I would think that we want to provide you as much information as needed. And if now we know that's kind of the hierarchy of how things are working with you guys and the different boards with it, as well as the town, if you guys determine that you want, we'll call it a specific funding way of doing things, we're going to make sure that gets pushed to the town, that they are aware of that. We want to make sure everybody is transparent and knows what's going on. I don't know if hopefully I answered that fairly completely. So I guess to your point, yes, you'd have an independent voice and you make sure that whatever you stated will be pushed downstream to all the people that need to know.
Well, I guess my other more separate, maybe more pointed would we have two different people in your organization, one representing us and one representing the town in matters? Would they be two separate people? I understand you guys can communicate behind the scenes, but would it be two different people?
I kind of look at that we're all on the same team, so to speak, and hopefully there's a consensus. I don't like to get in the, what you decide and the town decide, to think that has to come to the point. We're going to make sure you know what's going on. And ultimately, and I'd have to think what you mean goes to the finance board. Ultimately, is that what you're kind of getting at? We wouldn't want to take sides. we would want to make sure everybody's in consensus of what needs to be done.
Well, I understand, but I mean, and again, in a relationship that you already have, you know, again, I see synergies in that, but I also see again potential that pretend you didn't have a relationship with us, and maybe you would advise us, and how would that go? You know, would you be able to, put blinders on and pretend that other relationship didn't exist?
Yes, I think I would want to make sure give the best information forward so that all parties understand or have an understanding of the same things that's being talked about. And whether they interpret it as a good or bad is up to them. But I want to make sure everybody has full disclosure of the information. I guess is that kind of how you're looking at it?
No, I guess in this situation, again, you're talking about everybody. I don't care about everybody. I care about the people in the boxes here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's what I care about. So that's immaterial of what everybody else is, and again, I don't mean to put an adversarial relationship on it with Jared and the first selectman here. But it's in the sense that pretend you didn't have a relationship and there was another actuary firm working with the town. That's the kind of relationship that I'm expecting.
Yeah. So if we're representing the JRIB, then that's the way that's what we're going to go. We're going to go with whatever decisions JRIB wants, and we're going to push those forward.
Okay. Eric, did you have a question?
No, I understand where Chris was going with his questioning, and I think that the members of the pension board, view this separate trust, separate from the administration of the town. And I think we want to make sure that when we hire an actuary firm, that they serve the pension trust, and they are solely there to serve on behalf of the trustees of the pension trust in our decision making.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stefan, if I could jump in with a question, please. In your early part of your presentation, you had mentioned you have talks with the JRIB, the town, the Board of Finance, and the RTM, and you said you've had 3 or 4 conversations with the RTM. And then right after that, you had said you also offer training programs. And I'm a little, I have to say, I'm just wondering, perhaps it's just odd juxtaposition of those phrases, but do you offer training programs to our RTM members and our Board of Finance members, or were those separate things?
So what I did last year was they asked for a question and answer session, and this I think focused a lot around the early retirement program that they were implementing at the time, and they wanted to know a lot of the details on that. So I was asked to talk to them to answer any questions they had in regards to the impact that it may have on what on the pension plan.
Okay, so the VRIP and the early retirement plan was something that effectively the town contracted you for, and I want this board to know that the town paid for it separately. Those funds did not come out of the trust; they came out of the town. And so, what we're really curious: have you ever kind of spoken with our RTM? Do you have an ongoing dialogue with members of the RTM or the Board of Finance regarding the JRIB kind of umbrella?
No, they don't specifically ask anything about the J. They usually ask the impact of a change. So if a new assumptions were adopted, they would want to know they'd ask about the impact. So they would have asked the past year. They might have asked about if the interest rate was lowered, what the impact is to that.
Okay. Also,
but
in
they
your
don't specifically ask about anything about the JRIB.
Okay. The other thing I found interesting in your presentation was you mentioned that you have benefit calculators and you've been providing them to our HR department. Could you expand on that a little bit? Kind of when did you start doing calculations for them? Is this all part and parcel with the service, or is this relatively new?
We don't specifically do calculations. They asked us to help them, with building a calculator for them that they could use in order to calculate benefits going forward. We don't check the benefits that are done by the town or anything unless there's an oddball situation. They may ask us for some guidance on it to verify. A more complicated one might be a quadro if that comes into play. Things like that. But we do not do calculations currently for them.
So you've billed us for an awful lot of consulting to the town and to us, and I'm just wondering if you can characterize kind of what that is and how that's changed. Is that part of providing more administrative services, separate and distinct from the JRIB support?
they tend to focus all around decisions that are the JRIB are making, or, you know, for instance, I'd put down budget estimates for that purposes as general consulting, as opposed, you know, but I do itemize it and say, hey, this is what we did when there's, you know, whatever general consulting may have, the bucket that got dumped in, I would kind of give a couple points of what it entailed. It's usually specifically around the pension questions.
Okay, and does that fall under this, is the most recent kind of scope of work that we have with you? I mean, it goes back a really long time, right? I asked for that original contract, and I know that was 20 years ago, so I understand no one can find it anymore. I mean, I can't find anything from 20 years ago. But the most recent terms of engagement, is that still the December 5th, 2019?
That was the last one I sent to Bob Mayer that he had signed, yes.
Okay, but you haven't updated it or sent a new one out since the administration changed, right? Since we have a new CFO and a new.
What was that was 19, right? Is that what you said? Yes.
Yep.
There was been nothing new.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Would anyone else like to ask a question?
I guess I'll just dovetail quickly on your question. What would say or account for a difference between the scope of work which is initially contracted and what is currently executed?
I guess I didn't really hear the question clearly enough. What were you asking?
Well,
something about this.
I mean, for example, we you know, at this point in time, we have a 5-year estimate of what costs would be based on the scope of work. But going backward, you know, based on relatively the same scope of work, you know, what was the initial scope as laid out and what was ultimately billed. There seems to be a difference, and not an insignificant difference. So what I was asking is, what might have accounted for a different, you know, higher cost than initially contemplated based upon the scope of work as laid out.
So usually what tends to drive the cost would be anything when you start to talk about plan design work, changing benefit structures. If there's some union negotiations coming up, they may ask us to help with that. So that would always look at the different options, you know, of the plan changing and how it's going to impact the budget, you know, whether how it's going to affect costs going forward. So those tend to be out of scope. Again, you know, I'd have to look at a specific one.
Right. Were those requests come from within the JRIB or outside the JRIB?
Most likely they came through the town, and whether, I don't know if that you were going through the finance director requesting that information or not.
But it's ultimately billed to the trusts, right? And the funds.
Because typically things that get billed to the trust are things that involve the plan participants, if it's for the benefit of the plan participants. So benefit changes would directly go back to, you know, changing their benefit, and that would be something that affects their benefits. So that would typically go that billed for the trust. If it's something outside of that, then yes, that may be paid out of general assets of the town.
I guess the point of the question is to what extent we can control the cost, because the cost comes out of the trust. That's what we're ultimately trying to manage here.
Sure, and that's
and if there's requests coming from outside the JRIB, we have to understand that. If you know, because that's out of our control. If a request is initiated you know, outside of this committee, you know, we can't control those costs, and that's what we're here to manage.
Yeah, I agree. So I would kind of look at the flexibility that I mentioned, that, you know, if there's a way that you want to see the bills, we would certainly do that. If they need to get, you know, currently we send all the bills to the finance director. If it needs to go to the JRIB, we can address them to the JRIB, and that way we can outline all the costs that are in the bill and make sure that they're something that was approved by the JRIB. And that way it would, you know, the right entity would be paying for the right, you know, right services, whether it's the JRIB or the town. Because I mean, we already kind of do that now. So we a couple of years ago, they asked us to carve out what portion of our services was for the Board of Ed, so the Board of Ed gets the bill. And I would think that could be the same way with the J-Ribbon versus the town.
I would agree.
All right, guys, do we have any last questions? I think we're coming up against our time. All right, hearing none, guys, I thank you. Thank you for presenting to us. Thank you for the many years that you've done, and thank you for making yourselves available tonight.
All right. We appreciate you having us, and hopefully we answered your questions sufficiently. Like I said, we're always flexible. We can always work with the town as well as the J-Rib to service the plan as needed. Okay.
Terrific. Have a good evening.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to take a short break, right? Gerald, you're with us. You're one of my you're running the program, if you will. Gerald Foley is the wizard behind the RFP process for us. He's compiled all the data. He built the spreadsheets to kind of compare and contrast. So we really owe him a great, kind of a great round of virtual applause. Gerald, are you on? Or we're next up at 8 o'clock, right? Are we muted? Is he away? Okay, I think, Jared, do you remember? I think we next start at 8. So why don't we everyone take a little break,
That's right.
grab a snack, and we'll be back here at 8 o'clock. Thanks.
Will do.
All right, so we're waiting on our next presenters.
We're sure they have the right link, right?
Well, I'm hoping Gerald, if Gerald's on. Gerald
Yeah,
was,
yeah, I forwarded them the link that you'd give me the other day.
so
I'm not sure. I never really checked it to see if there was a misspelling in it. I don't think there was.
well, you should have, do you have a way to reach them now? I mean, Hooker and Holcomb figured out how to get on. They clearly have the right link.
Yep.
Gerald,
Yeah,
who's next? Siegel or Milliman?
Milliman.
And Milliman we have going from 8 until 8:30.
No, well, I did them like the first one was supposed to start at 7:15, second one 8:15, the third one 9:15.
Okay,
So
can
you
we,
took the first, yeah, so you took the first one just a little bit early, but that doesn't matter. So with the other ones, they're not due on for another few minutes.
do you, I think we can get through this a little bit faster than we had scheduled or you had
Yeah.
advocated for. Could I ask you to, you have the contact information for them. Could you see if Milliman could join us, in the next, say, 5 minutes, 8:05, and then reach out to Siegel and
Yeah, I can do that.
let's see if they can be available at 8:40.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is one of those situations where we didn't want the competitor to see the presentation, and so we put in the gaps to try to have an opportunity to kick them off and bring new people on, but clearly we got the timing a little off.
Hello.
Hi. Who just joined us? No one yet. Ugh. Well, guys, I don't know if you've all noticed around town, but our seniors in high school are beginning their senior assassin game. Have you guys heard of this or seen this? So you put in the kitty, you put a bunch of money into a kitty, and then they all get spread out. They pick names, and you have to shoot someone with a Nerf gun. And there are really specific rules about where you can go and can't go. So you can't get them on school property, and you can't do it while they're driving a car, but you can get them in transit to home. Can't do it in the house. And so if you look around town now, you're going to see a lot of Nerf guns, a lot of Nerf being sprayed. and the winner gets $1,500.
Very cool.
It is
Who-
very.
Who organizes it?
This has been going on for years, and there are always two organizers, and they get a cut of the payout, right?
Yeah,
So
I would assume.
organizer. It's totally this entrepreneurial fun thing. So this evening when I was driving home, there were, 4 kids staked out in the bushes. And they have no idea what they're doing. And it's a blast. It's totally a blast to watch this. And invariably the Moms of Fairfield Facebook page will light up like about this, and there'll be some drama over it. And that's just part of the fun of watching it all unfold.
I think we might want to consider doing that with the J-Rib. And if Walter Burke doesn't win, he should be fired.
Good point.
Well, just so you know, historically, there may have been a shooting competition between the fire department and the police department.
Ah,
I believe
right.
the fire department won, so just saying. Saying.
All right, we're working on it.
Yes, I just sent the notice to the guys at Milliman. I haven't heard back from them yet, and then now I'm going to message the group from Siegel.
Okay.
I'll have them go in. I'll go in. I'll shoot for 8:45, so you have at least a little bit of buffer between the two groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can watch it. We'll wrap it up quickly, but that would be good.
Okay, thank you.
Carolyn, while we're waiting, one of the things I noticed in your spreadsheet was the fact that Siegel are less expensive, but they don't provide a lot of the personal services that the other two do. So it's not an apples to orange comparison. So the question is, in the absence of those services being provided by the actuarial, to what extent, what capacity does the town have to provide those services?
Yeah.
And how important is that? Maybe Jerry could answer that question. I don't know if I don't have a sense of it.
Yeah, I think we were going to bring that up, a lot of that up during exec session. We can talk a little bit about it now. We don't have everybody, but so the town historically has managed the benefits through the HR department, and it's, a full-time job, a 1.5-time job in order to do. It's been working that way forever. There is what you saw in that plan administration question, do you have the capability to do so? Other pension plans and funds have kind of outsourced it. Like we outsourced the CIO to Vanguard. We can outsource that and have the trust pick up that service for the benefit of the pension and the pensioners and our members. And in order to find a firm that would do that, we need to survey whether or not they had the capability to do so. And in that case, so Siegel does not, right? According to their responses, Hooker and Holcomb claims to, and Milliman claims to have all of that capability. I can't explain the Siegel really low price other than, I think we'll have to ask them about their pricing, the revised pricing. Either they want the business or they are maybe leaving out some of the consulting aspect that goes along with providing the support to the JRIB.
Yeah, those services are, you know, I think they'll probably burn a lot of man hours. I think that, you know, that doesn't surprise me, given the delta in price, given the fact that there's a laundry list of services, personal services that they don't seem to have the capacity to provide.
Ah, I see some new faces here, guys. Well, I see some new names.
Good evening.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Carolyn Trabucco. I'm the chairman of the JRIB. You're joined with the full set of the JRIB members. We represent the town employee pension board and the police and fire pension boards. We also have with us our town's CFO and our town's first select woman, Brenda Kupchik. And we have on the phone listening in some other members of the town who kind of work very, very closely hand in glove with us on making sure that the pensions and the benefits are done in a tip-top manner. Thank you for responding to our RFP. We appreciate the thoroughness of it, and we're delighted to have you present to us. We've got until about 8:40, maybe 8:45. We'd like to be able to have a few minutes at the end for Q&A. And other than that, if you're able to share your screen, if you have a presentation, feel free to put it up, and I'll allow you to introduce your team and take it away.
Okay, thank you. I think one of our team is still there's Jen coming online right now. And you can hear me okay?
Hear you great.
Super. Okay. Well, there's Jen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. I opened up a whole lot of documents in preparation for tonight, but let me tell me if you can see this all right. And
yeah, we see it fine. Looks good.
Okay.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. We're pleased to be here tonight to discuss Milliman's actuarial consulting services with the town of Fairfield. Before we get started, our plan is to provide you with a brief 20 to 25-minute presentation, and then follow it up with a Q&A section. Is that okay with everybody?
That's perfect.
All right, so we will get started with some introductions. My name is Jen Castellano. I will be the lead actuary and relationship manager for the town of Fairfield. I will be your main point of contact for day-to-day things, and I will manage the team that will be servicing your plans.
Hi, I'm Sharad Arora. I've been working on OPEB for a very, very long time, mostly here in Connecticut, but I've had some chances to spend time outside of Connecticut also. And as a matter of fact, I used to work on the Fairfield plan at my prior employer.
Hi, I'm Elena Pelletier. Like Jen and Sharad, I've spent my whole career working on pension plans with different municipalities. And as part of the Fairfield team, I would be responsible for the day-to-day actuarial work for your pension plan.
And I'm Becky Seelman. I oversee the public plan work that Milliman does throughout New England. And I am the designated peer reviewer for the Fairfield work we do. Milliman has very strict and comprehensive quality assurance programs, which includes designating an extra qualified set of eyes to look over everything we do for you before it gets in your hands. I'm going to start off just by giving you a bit of a general overview about Milliman. This slide has some big numbers on it, some facts and figures about us. In particular, I want to just draw your attention to we're a large firm. We have more than 4,000 employees across the globe. We are privately owned by our principals, and we deliver services to more than 3,000 actuarial clients. A great deal of our work is with the public sector, with municipalities. And here in Connecticut, we provide actuarial services for a significant number of your surrounding towns and communities throughout, largely Connecticut, but also the other New England states. We spend a lot of time devoted to meeting the needs of our clients and of the communities within which they reside. It is something I think that all four of us wake up in the morning looking forward to doing, is working with our public plans.
So as Becky mentioned, Milliman lives, breathes, and sleeps public retirement plans since 1947. We have a lot of expanse throughout the country. On the larger side of things, some of the things that we do to bring information to our public plan sponsors. One of the big things we do is look at a funding study for the 100 largest public plans, which Becky is in charge of. We came up with a new publication last year, cooked up in the kitchen, if you will. It's Dear Actuary. It's a layman's way of delivering questions that everybody has. And so this is a new publication that you'll see a little bit of. Yelena is a contributor and a writer, and Jen is the managing editor. Locally, again, we have been invited to speak at a lot of public functions. CPPF, GFOA, the Connecticut Society of CPAs, and on and on. I think a lot of people ask us to speak there because they view us as the experts in the field. We have client bulletins, we have other publications that we deliver via our website and directly. The bottom line is to keep you, the public plan sponsor, informed.
So I'm going to take a moment now to talk about our approach to customer service. We would like to view our partnership, our relationship with you as a partnership. We will be a team that will work together to help you provide your retirement programs for your employees and retirees. With the 4 senior members on your team, there will always be somebody available who has a deep understanding of your plans to answer questions and return calls or emails very quickly. If you hire us, one of the first things we're going to do is sit down with you to get a better understanding of your needs, your timing with respect to your audit, understand your budget process, because we want to make sure that we are well positioned to be able to provide you and your auditors with the information you need to be able to complete your audit in a timely manner. And we also want to make sure you have all the information you need in hand so that your budget process can run as smoothly as possible. That's very important to us. And quite honestly, any competent actuary can provide you with the numbers that you need. But our approach is slightly different. These are very complex technical terms and very complex things that we're talking about. And we believe it's our job to break down that information and translate it in a very straightforward manner into plain English so that you can understand and digest the information and make a very well-informed decision. We don't expect you to have an advanced degree in actuarial science. That's our job. That's why we went to school. That's why we took all those exams for all those years and tortured ourselves so that we would be the experts to provide you with the information you need to make those decisions. We also like to keep you apprised of any trends that are coming forward in the industry. For example, if you were our client a couple of years ago when the new public plan mortality tables were released, we would have told you about it ahead of time, even before we were ready to crunch any numbers for you, just to give you a heads up that it was coming, that it was going to increase your liabilities and increase your costs, and assure you that once we have all the information available to digest it, we would evaluate it with you and help you come out with the best plan to move forward. On this page off to the right is a sample of some of the materials that we present annually to go over the highlights of our valuation. We will walk you through the results step by step, explain the reasons for the movement in numbers. We may make some recommendations on the assumption front, but we'll explain those recommendations. And then we'll ask for your feedback because, again, we view this as a partnership and we want to come to a meeting of the minds with respect to the assumptions used to value your plan liabilities and fund your plans appropriately going forward. You asked us for a sample invoice, so I want to take a moment to talk about our billing process and what our invoices look like. First and foremost, the last thing we want when you open up one of our invoices is for you to fall off your chair because something has caught you off guard. We don't want any surprises. Our invoices are typically broken down into two main categories. First are the standard recurring services that we do year over year for which we have set fixed fees, which we've told you about ahead of time. So those will be identified and billed for on our invoices. Everything else kind of falls under an out of scope or special services project. And for those we charge based on time we spend. Before we start working on any of those projects, we will first discuss the project with you, the scope of the project, the nature of the project, what we expect the cost of the project to be. We want to make sure that you are comfortable with all of that before we put a second of work into that project. And then our invoice will clearly identify that project, who worked on it, how much time they spent, what their billing rate is, and all that sums up together to come up to a total cost for that particular project. Now, a few minutes ago, I mentioned that you could always reach us and pick up the phone and call us. And I just want to make sure you understand that when that happens, we're not setting a clock running. We're not going to invoice you for every little minute we spend talking to you because, again, this is a relationship. It's a partnership. Having that back and forth helps us provide you with the best service possible going forward. On this page, these are some standard examples of the information that we provide in our annual evaluations year over year for every client. First and foremost, our evaluations provide a long-range forecast of various metrics. So first, it does calculate your cost for the current year, but we also want to give you some forward thinking and insight into what the future holds. In this top left corner of this page, I always like to take a moment to pause on this particular graph because what it represents is a projection of the benefit payments that this particular plan is expected to pay out in the next 20 years. And for this plan, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars paid out. In the midst of all the craziness of setting budgets and calculating numbers and crunching the numbers, we sometimes forget that the sole purpose of these plans is to provide retirement income for your plan members. And that is no small feat. It's the sole purpose for why we do what we do every single day. So it should be celebrated and appreciated that you're accomplishing that goal. We also provide some information around the plan's liability. We can break that down as granularly as you'd like us to, or we could provide a more high level, as well as with the actuarially determined contribution. All of our information we try to make it very visually appealing so that it's easy to digest and understand. In the bottom right-hand corner of this page is a distribution of the plan's active members by age along the vertical and by years of service along the horizontal. This is a chart that you probably have seen in your reports in the past, but what we've done to it is added some color so that the higher concentration of combination of areas to really stand out to you immediately and without you having to think very hard. So that you really can to get a better understanding of what your current population looks like. And for this particular plan, it was important to note that almost half the population at this point in time was eligible to retire as of the valuation date. And that was very insightful for this particular client and made them think about how they're going to manage their workforce in the future. Also, as part of our standard services in our annual valuations, we provide a plethora of information about the various risks associated with your plans. Along the left-hand column here are some various metrics that can be used to analyze the risks that you face with your plans. But the two biggest risks that most public plans face are interest rate risk and the risk of under-contributing. So that can be that risk is quantified in the bottom right-hand graph on this page here. It gives you an idea of what would happen if you persistently underfund your plan relative to what your actuary is recommending. What happens if your plan persistently underperforms relative to the assumption that is used to calculate your liabilities. It gives you an idea of what the future would hold for you if that were to happen. In the top right of this page, this is not necessarily a standard piece of information we provide in our annual reports, but this is our standard approach to evaluating the cost impact of any plan changes. Again, just like with evaluation reports, we think you need to take a holistic approach and look at long-range impact, not just immediate impact, but the long-term impact of any decision so that you can make a very well-informed decision. And because we already provide those long-range forecasts as part of our standard annual services, we have the infrastructure already set up to do this in a very cost-effective way for the client, for you, and that can give you lots of information to make a decision. I'm sure over the last several years, you've had many conversations with your actuaries about your interest rate assumption, and they've probably been telling you that it needs to be lowered, it needs to be lowered. It's the conversation that's universal to all public plan sponsors. We've been having that conversation for several years now. But in addition to saying that, we like to provide you with the information that supports those numbers and those recommendations. So these two particular graphs here are standard pieces of information that we provide in our annual presentation materials year over year to help give you some insight as to why we are recommending the assumption that we are recommending.
Okay, so Jen has shown you examples of output that is part of our standard actuarial reports. We also wanted to show you a couple of innovative tools that we've developed that go beyond our basic services. So on this page, we're showing you the results of an analysis which provides you with a way to benchmark your pension and OPEB benefits against other communities. These types of benefits can be hard to compare because they're made up of different features and different towns use different assumptions to value them. So what we've done is come up with a method that takes publicly available data and calculates a single metric that captures the richness of the benefits on an apples-to-apples basis. So on the graph, the longer bars represent richer benefits. Here is another tool that we're developing. What we've done is taken the participant data that you would provide to us as part of the regular valuation work, combined it with our valuation assumptions, and turned it into an interactive projection model. What the model does is provide insights into your workforce and assists you with workforce planning. For example, the model can show you how many employees are expected to depart over the next 10 years, like the graph at the top is showing. It can also show you something like what portion of your population will be eligible to retire 5 years from now. You can look at that data for the population as a whole, or you can drill down right on screen and look at those results either by union or location, or all the way down to the individual level. We think this is a powerful tool for employers, so we wanted to share it with you.
You asked us to provide some fee information about an array of administrative tasks. And this slide here goes into a fair amount of detail about all the various things that fall under the broad umbrella of pension administration. And Milliman can provide you with a great variety of approaches to meeting your administration needs. before I launch into a detailed conversation about it, I wanted to just check with you because I know we have a limited time budget tonight. I want to be respectful of your time. I can spend some time providing you with some detail around an administration system that we can provide to you called MARC. MARC has the advantage of being incredibly flexible. It's a system, it's a tool. You can use it yourself in-house as a replacement for spreadsheets that were built in the 1980s, maybe. Or we can build it and have it all of the work delivered directly by Milliman employees, or anything in between. And what we provided to fees at Gerald's request are the fees assuming this full service model, assuming that Milliman handles everything soup to nuts. And that might be appropriate for you, or what might suit your needs better might be some different splitting of town personnel doing some administrative tasks and Milliman doing some. And we'd be happy to do a demonstration for you of how the system works. For instance, the website that plan sponsors would use to perform the administrative tasks, or that Milliman would do if we were providing the administration. As well, there's a website that members can go to run estimates of their pension benefits, to get more information about the plan, for retirees to change their tax withholding, all in a secure environment backed by a call center. I'd be happy to arrange a time to demonstrate the system for you in more detail and really sit down with you for a discovery conversation, if you will, to figure out what makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, if I could add what we were looking for, that was clearly to see if you had the capability to provide those. Your response was clearly that you do have that capability. We will discuss, exactly what that is at a later date, but it is nice to see that you have all of that capability in-house.
We sure do. And for many of our clients, our smaller clients in particular, we just provide the administrative services on more of an ad hoc basis. Some of our little fire department plans, for instance, may only have a handful of benefits that need to be calculated each year. And we just take them as they come on a fixed fee basis. And we'd be happy to provide you with kind of a menu of prices for different administrative tasks. So there is a broad spectrum. It does take a little bit of conversation to figure out what's going to meet your needs best. One of the nice thing about the MARC system, though, is that you can deploy it initially in kind of one format, and then later on down the road, as your needs change, for instance, if some key person retires, you can always at that point change over to a different point along the spectrum.
So in summary, with Milliman, you get an independent firm with an independent view. We are completely owned by our employees. We have no parent organization, no outside shareholders, no hidden agendas or fees. At the bottom line is we have no financial stake in your decisions. We feel it's important and imperative that we provide you with the information that you need so that you can make the best possible decisions for your community. Our main concern is to do our work in the interests of our clients, because our mission is to serve our clients and protect the health and financial well-being of people everywhere. So with that, we will open it up to questions.
Great, thank you. Might I ask you to take there you go, the slides down. I'd like to open the floor. Does anyone have a question? Chris? Uh-oh, can't hear you. Still no good. Sorry, Chris, we're not hearing you yet. Nope. Whatever you did last time, might want to do that again. Would anyone else like to ask a question while Chris gets the AV up and running?
Carolyn, it's Jack. I would love to jump in if I could.
Sure, please do, Jack.
Okay, great. So thank you for the presentation. It was very helpful. So Milliman is based in Seattle, as I understand. Where is this team based?
Yeah, we are a national or global firm, but this team is based in Windsor, Connecticut. So we are not just a short drive away from the town of Fairfield.
Okay, and Jen, you mentioned that you would head up the team, that there's a team that would support you. Are you the lead actuary?
Yes.
Okay, and is this the team that we see here, or are there other individuals?
These are the senior consultants on the team, and the team will also be made up of some supporting analysts, senior and analysts to do a lot of the dirty work, the heavy lifting, so to speak.
Sure. Okay. And I guess I just have one last question. I don't know that I've worked directly with Milliman in the past. Do you guys have a centralized model where you're bringing everything together on a national basis and then making decisions maybe out of Seattle, or are things decentralized and it's incumbent upon each office to kind of come up with the process and procedure that you see best fit?
Becky, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we're a combination, Jack. We are a very decentralized organization, and one of the things that draws professionals to Milliman is our freedom to figure out what we like doing best. For me, that answer 30 years ago was, I like working with public pension plans. And so here we are today. You saw the client list 30 years ago. That public plan client list, I think, had the town of Madison on it. Full stop. I have the freedom, we have the freedom within Milliman to do the kind of work we like doing and to figure out the way in which we want to do it. We do have some things that are centralized that are very important to us. And the most important thing is a very strict protocol regarding quality assurance. So I'm the peer reviewer for the team. That's a required part of what we do for all of our clients. And rigorous scrutiny of every single number before it ever gets out to you, going through our peer review requirements. We use a centralized valuation system for the basic actuarial number crunching. It's a commercial system. I'm sure that the other people you're talking to use it or another system like it. We have, the four of us, plus our compatriots in Windsor, have spent a lot of time over the past couple of years thinking deeply about the needs of our public clients and developing the tools and infrastructure that we need to deliver that to you. Sharad mentioned earlier some of our publications, the Public Pension Funding Study that I've been doing now for a bunch of years, and Dear Actuary, which we just launched last year. Those come out of our brains based on what we see our community of clients needing and appreciating. And we come up with an idea like that and we make it happen. I hope that's answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Chris, are you up?
I think I'm good now. Am I good? All right.
You're good.
I work in IT, and this is very embarrassing. I have two questions. So, and I apologize, I'm not totally 100% up to speed on how actuaries do their work, but you guys are a very large firm. You have diverse clients all across this country. Do you guys bring that experience into your calculation? Do you guys tell me what special sauce you guys have with your wide base of clients that other actuaries might not have?
Well, I think the key is that we have a deep bench across the country. At any point in time, there may be some situation that comes about with the town of Fairfield that maybe the four of us don't know the answer to, but we can pick up the phone and call dozens of senior consultants and almost guarantee that somebody will have faced that issue and will have expertise in that issue, and we can bring them in to help consult and guide you along the way. And that's where we feel we offer a lot of advantage in that respect.
Right.
Okay.
We provide actuarial services for California teachers, state of Oregon, state of Florida, state of Idaho, Texas Counties Retirement System, lots and lots of public plans across the country.
But when you look at our calculations, or when you look at the stuff that you're doing for us, are you relying purely on the actuarial tables that you see, or do you draw upon the experience from the depth of your client base?
It would be more the experience on the depth of our client base. You know, between all of the different clients that we have, we've seen a lot, and every community faces different challenges. There's different issues that are more important to some communities than others, and we listen to that, and we can understand that and draw from that experience with our other clients to offer you the best guidance that we can.
Okay, and just one other question. You know, in this relationship, if we hire you, you guys would be working with solely for us. So you might have an interface with actuaries that work for the town. Tell me about the situations where with other clients where you have that, and how you deal with maybe a different perspective or a conflict in your numbers, and how you guys handle that.
It is a nearly universal situation where we're the actuaries, we're the number crunchers, we're the experts in the complex financial thing that is your pension plans, your OPEB plan. And there are more than one party, if you will, interested in that information and needing to consume that information. The town is collectively bargaining these benefits, and sometimes that means that the town will ask us to do analysis of the impact of proposed plan changes. Sometimes the union might ask us to provide that analysis. Sometimes there's a different actuary on the other side. Sometimes it's the same actuary providing the analysis. We're unbiased. We don't advocate in either direction. If both parties are comfortable, we are happy providing analysis for both parties. We need to be completely transparent about what we're doing for whom, and we need to be completely secure in the way in which we share or do not share information with both parties. So we understand the delicacy of the relationship, that is not just management and unions. There are also plan members. There are also taxpayers. There is the bond buying public. There are a lot of different stakeholders. Our job is to provide the unbiased analysis and information for the parties that need it. So you're shaking your head. Did I get to what you were getting after?
Well, kind of, and again, my focus again is on this board. You know, I work for this board. I don't have any other interests other than what this board is. So what I'm looking for is an advocate that's going to look for our interests exclusively. You know, I understand that, I understand transparency, and I'm all for that, and making sure that, not trying to do everything above board, but, when the rubber meets the road and there could be, and again, totally hypothetical, not even just saying, but, when challenged by some of these other side parties, they're saying, hey, this is what we're presenting forward from our board, that you guys are be able to support that and defend, what our decisions are based on the information that you give us.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a question? We've got only a couple of minutes left, I think. I know, Eric, you were leaning forward. Did you have a question?
No, I think Chris has got it. I think we're good.
Okay. So a question that I had, if I might jump in here at the end. I mean, one thing I found particularly interesting that you were presenting was your reports and how you break down the data, how you break down the math, and the reports that you showed us. I mean, I assume that that's kind of the base stock, right? I mean, that's the report that you get. You get that level of information, kind of as just part of being your client.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Some relationship question, if I can just ask, is how do you like to work between the town and kind of and the pension funds? Because, you know, we are the JRIB, we're a volunteer board, we are the fiduciaries of the fund, and our role's really clear in the town charter of who we represent and we work for. That the town wears many hats. You mentioned very carefully, you kind of gave us a sense of kind of how you provide just the accurate information. I'm just curious about, from a relationship standpoint, you know, where has it gone well for you? Where has it gone poorly? And you know, and the handoff between the two.
Yeah, well, let me continue that conversation then. Every community does have its own flavor. And one of the things we need to establish with you early on is just what the Fairfield version of that is. Who's giving us our marching orders? Where are we going to go when we have questions? Who do we provide copies to of what? There are some relationships where we solely work for a retirement board and never talk with management, with the you know, the elected officials or with the professional staff. There are other communities where the opposite is true. We work for management and critique the work done by the actuary that is hired by the board and everything in between. It's very common, in fact, in some parts of the country for the board to be an entirely separate entity from the plan sponsor and to have separate actuaries. And if that's what Fairfield's preference is, we can do that. If there is essentially no distinction between the town and the board, we can do that too. So we'll want to make sure we understand, you know, how Fairfield rolls so that we can fit into that in the way that suits you best.
Thank you. Jared, did you have a question? Thought I saw you lean forward. I didn't know if that was, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, you know, I think our goal is to work jointly, just so you understand, I think what we would expect, that the town would work with the JRIB. But there could be situations where, you know, maybe we have a difference of opinion or a difference in what the expectation is. At this point in time, we're not really considering hiring two different actuaries, and you know, we believe that there is, you know, there's a way that we can work together to get things done. But in the case where there is a conflict, you know, give any examples where you've had a situation like that, or where you've had a conflict between the management side and the board side, and you know, how you've chosen to deal with that.
We do try and head off problems before they become problems. The openness and transparency are really key to that. We certainly have worked in situations where there's a fairly adversarial relationship that existed before we came onto the scene, and we need to be aware of that and respectful of that, and we don't want shouting. We don't want unhappiness. We want to make sure that we're doing what everyone wants us to do, and in terms of the role that we play.
And you mentioned,
I can't remember any bad, really, you know, unpleasant.
I don't think we've run across, sorry, Jared. I don't think we've run across the type of situation you're describing. I think, just to summarize what Becky's saying, is we get our rules of engagement from you, and you tell us, you know, how involved the finance director is. You tell us how involved the union president is, and then we take our marching orders from you. We just haven't run across too many situations where the town is telling us one thing and the board is telling us another. I'm sure it's happened, but I think we haven't seen it at all that I can remember.
Right. You know, it's a lot of little things. I started getting calls from different members of a particular client's town council. And it happens to be the town I live in. So they happen to know me personally, but still they were calling me in my official capacity as the town's actuary. So I sent a quick note to the finance director. Is it okay if I answer those questions, or would you prefer that I direct them through you? And her preference was that she be the locus for all of the questions, and so that's what I communicated out to the people, so that the next time they stop me on the soccer field, I said, happy to talk about your darling daughter's soccer game, but we're not talking about your pension plan today. Call me, we'll call your finance director instead.
Guys, we're up against our time limit. Does anyone else have a final question they'd like to ask? Looks like not. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in, and thank you for accommodating our little shift in timing this evening. I know we're kind of a working board, if you will. we go late. We'll follow up with you once we've huddled up, and we really do appreciate your making the effort to bring the full team to us this evening. And hopefully next time, whenever our paths cross, we'll be doing it in person. But and not little boxes.
Yeah. Well, we hope we've provided you with all the information you need to make your decision. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Becky in the meantime. But we do look forward to the possibility of working with you in the future. And we really hope that you hire us. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, guys. One clear. Gerald, were we able to get them, the folks from Siegel up?
So what I did is I've emailed them twice, and then I happen to have their mobile numbers, so I've left them, two different members, I've left them messages. So I'm hoping that I haven't heard back from them on either the emails nor the mobile. So I'm hoping within the next minute or two that I'm hearing, because you're approaching the 9 o'clock, and I think you have them scheduled for 9:15. So hopefully we should be hearing from them shortly.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you guys want to take a short break again? Okay. Just keep an
Sounds
eye.
good.
Okay.
Good evening. This is Henry Naring from the Siegel Company.
Hi, Henry. Welcome. I'm Carolyn Trabucco. I'm the chair of the JRIB. You have with us tonight nearly a full house of JRIB member, and we represent two pension boards, the Police and Fire Board and the Town Employment Retirement Board. We'll also have with us this evening the town's CFO, Jared Schmidt, the town's first select woman, Brenda Kupchik, and a few other members are listening in from the town. So this is as full a house as you can get on a you know, in our little squares here on WebEx.
It works.
I regret we couldn't host you in person. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Seeing we have everybody gathered, I think why don't we get going, if you would, allow you to kind of introduce your team. Feel free to put your presentation up, share it with us, and figure about 20 minutes, and then we'll go to Q&A, and we look forward to it.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
All right. I'm seeing I see a few people. I think Sam is joining, and I see Terry already. So I'm just giving another minute here to make sure the rest of the team joins in.
Henry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Sam. All right. So yeah, I apologize in advance. Unfortunately, like you were saying, if we were meeting in person, we would have been out in the hallway, and you could have just waved us on in.
That's okay. I mean, we're happy. Take the time you need to get it set up. I know. Yep. There's no kind of easy way, right, to do this in a virtual setting like there is in person. We're more than happy to kind of roll with it.
Okay, sounds good.
Mind me asking, can you see me?
No, Sam.
Okay, all right.
But we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
All right, so I am going to.
Here we go.
There you are.
Here I am.
Hey. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
That's good.
All right. Well, again, my name is Henry Naring. I'm from Siegel at the Hartford, actually the Farmington office in Connecticut here. I've got with me tonight Sam Busini. He's from on the OPEB side, and Terry Damati. Tammy Dixon would be here, but we're having a little trouble getting her connected at the moment. So we'll go through this presentation, but obviously this is your meeting. At any point in time, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt, ask questions, but we do have a few things to talk about, a little bit about Siegel and how we believe we can help the town with both their OPEB and their retirement plans. So here's the team. Like I said, the other team members down below, Chad Brown, Ted, and Megan, all not in attendance today, but that we at Siegel here have a regional approach to how we work with every client. So obviously being in Connecticut, there's a Connecticut office, but Chad and Megan are actually from our Washington, D.C. office, as is Tammy, and Ted is also in Connecticut. So from our standpoint, this is really all about communication. Obviously, there's actuarial consulting that goes into this, but from our standpoint, we're really looking for partnerships with all of our clients. So it's not just a one-stop shop to produce actuarial valuation reports. Frankly, any actuarial firm could do that. Produce the GASB reports, the information needed for your auditor and your financial filings and CAFRs and such things like that. But it's really the team support, and Siegel provides a big depth of resources. So we've got the actuarial consulting team, like I said, the kind of the core team. Terry Tamati's on here as kind of a Connecticut resource. She's got lots of good connections throughout Connecticut and some, very good experience of what other cities and towns are doing within Connecticut. We've got a great compliance legislative updates. Our Washington, D.C. office works very closely with everything that's going on in the world on the legislation side. From the rules and regulations, obviously they're happening down in DC, to pending legislation. All of that is available to Siegel, and if the Fairfield becomes a client, it'd be available to you as well. So essentially, the big thing is, Siegel as a firm, we're just over 1,000 employees, so we're good size. We're a national firm, but we're also not too big where there's we can still be nimble, and you still get that personal touch. So it's obviously from our perspective, we feel it's like the best of both worlds. It's both the national firm and the large depth of resources, but also the the personal touch from your individual consultants. So, like I said, funding and GASB evaluations, anybody can put those numbers together. That's really only the beginning of our services. That's where the consulting starts, is around the reports, and then everything that flows out from those reports. So risk studies is something that flows out of those reports. Risk, obviously through assumptions. We have tools that you can actually look ahead and do lots of pretty quick projections, something called Siegel Pulse. As part of our risk analysis, I see that it was a couple of years ago that you did do an experience study, and I believe that on a 5-year cycle, it looks like you're due for one probably in 2021. So come June 30th of 2021, an experience study is typically done. Part of the Siegel process is that we do look at the assumptions every single year. So every time we do the valuation, we're actually looking at them as part of the valuation process. And we look at the experience study more as a formal accumulation of all of the past experience into a report that you can then react to and adjust the assumptions accordingly. And all of that conversation, it's very important to note, is done in conjunction with the town. So we don't certainly do it in a vacuum, and we don't just make assumption changes without involving a town discussion. Any assumption changes that are made, we model them out in advance to kind of show the the pros and the cons, the impact to the numbers, and so on and so forth. Day-to-day activities are obviously very important for all of our clients. Benefit calculations, employee questions, plan design questions, collective bargaining, we're very familiar with all of that. For benefit calculations, we can do all of the final benefit calculations. The one thing where we do kind of draw the line, so to speak, is at the employee direct communication. So we prefer not to communicate directly with the employees, but we absolutely can help your human resource department, your finance director, whoever is getting the calls and the questions from the employees. We will certainly help you answer any and every question that comes up with your employees. So kind of one question to think about that we always pose to, especially on the retirement side, is do your employees that are in the pension plan actually, know the value of it and appreciate it? That is where sometimes we could bring in our communication experts. We've got a lot of good communication experts, whether it's, personal meetings. For some of our clients, we actually run kind of in conjunction with the human resource department, like a benefits fair or everybody likes to talk to the actuary, especially at 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. So we're certainly willing to talk to your participants in the right forum. And we can actually do training for your HR staff as well. So we've had clients where they brought in a new maybe HR director, and we can be there to bring them up to speed very quickly. So that's all of the day-to-day activities. We can certainly help with that. And then the last piece of the puzzle here on this page, just the compliance. Like I said, the plan designs, the legislative updates, and even the kind of the annual information where you do have to keep your plan document up to date. We can help with plan drafting, and then it's reviewed by your legal counsel and approved from there. So all the way from the collective bargaining agreements, helping you work through those, to getting it reflected and recognized in the plan document. So strategic planning. This slide, I like to say that it's, you can see that planning is very rarely happening in a straight line. So the objectives, identify them up front, you plan ahead. Every good plan is going to have bumps in the road. And I think the bumps in the road is really where Siegel kind of shines, so to speak, is, looking back in 2020, nobody expected this pandemic, and it greatly impacted a lot of cities and towns and obviously the entire country. So bumps in the road, you've got to be able to react to those. And, it's all the best planning in the world. You always will end up with bumps in the road. It's how you react to those bumps in the road that really makes or breaks a situation and helps move the plans forward. So how do you figure out those bumps in the road? There's something called deterministic projections. Those are simple what if scenarios. What if assets drop 10%? Can you, how does that impact the numbers? Then the other more complicated side of things that we do is something called stochastic projections. Stochastic projections are then the how likely, what are the probabilities behind a range. So I think it's always a good mix. Obviously the deterministic are somewhat simplistic, but I think it can give at least a flavor of, like I said, what happens if assets decline 10%, but it's also, could be very helpful to have the stochastic and know the range of what those bumps in the roads could look like in the future. So we've got the full range of resources. A relationship that's fairly new to Siegel that I'd like to mention is a group that we've partnered with out of the UK called Club Vita. They are longevity experts. So they've been doing over in Europe and in the UK, a lot of analysis around longevity and mortality experience, essentially. And it was good timing where we partnered up with Club Vita, and there's obviously a lot of studying going on currently right now because of the pandemic. All of that mortality experience really won't work through any of the actuarial tables for probably at least another year or two. Club Vita is on the cutting edge, and as a result, Siegel will be as well. So Siegel Pulse, before I turn it over to the health folks, just real quickly, I just wanted to give you a snapshot here of what the Siegel Pulse is. Like I said, we can program and do some deterministic type modeling. What Siegel Pulse is essentially we would program the behind the scenes, all the actuarial stuff in the background. And then we would hand it over to the town and say, go crazy, plug in a bunch of different scenarios. You can plug in different, return assumptions for your assets, contribution assumptions. What if you put in extra contributions? What if you take a contribution holiday, so to speak? How does that model out and look into the future? And there's obviously a lot more in this tool, but in the short time to keep on track here, I'll just kind of end it there and say that this is certainly an option available for you. So with that, I'll pass it over to Sam and Terry.
So, okay, this is Sam. I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm a consulting actuary, been with Siegel since 2016. I have over 20 years of experience performing OPEB valuation consulting, mostly in the public space, since the implementation of GASB 45 back in 2006. I'm the lead actuary for 16 clients in Connecticut and throughout New England. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the OPEB here. This is from a health OPEB standpoint. We kind of I highlighted, our understanding of the different OPEB plan for the town of Fairfield. So the town is offered medical benefit. It's self-funded for the town through Anthem. On the over 65, the Medicare members are provided medical supplement plans, and also the pharmacy is provided through EggWeb. On the other hand, for the Board of Ed, the benefit amount of benefits are provided through the State of Connecticut Partnership Plan. So here at Siegel, we do perform the State of Connecticut for the partnership plan. So we perform the OPEB evaluation for the State of Connecticut. So we are very well positioned here, and we can somehow leverage the work, the knowledge we know, State partnership plan to city like Fairfield. I summarize here the different bill. This is all not new news anymore. The congressional spending bill that passed in December 2019, which fully repeated the sales tax, and also the health insurance effective for the year to 12/31/2020. So this is definitely should be reflected in your disclosure as of June 30, 2020 at this point. Looking at the OPEB funding, so the town has funded its benefit. It has an OPEB trust, the town and the police, and we're 30% funded. The Board of Ed doesn't fund its benefit, which makes sense. The Board of Ed, the benefit is only basically continuation on the active plan. And it doesn't subsidy here, there no explicit subsidy from the Board of Ed. Now we'll be looking at the policy and your objective. How long you're planning on funding the benefit, fully funding the benefit. It looks like you're fully funding the Aid Act so far, based on my reading of the different reports. We can also look at plan design. The town has a very generous benefit, offered to its retiree, the town and the police. So there's some leeway here. If you can consider, plan design changes, cost sharing changes here. So we can definitely assist. The pandemic, COVID-19, it had big impact on, on our economy and dental, and our approach here is we do think there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to COVID-19. So we've been kind of smoothing out those claims, or because obviously for the OPEB evaluation, it's a long-term view, and we think this is just temporary. The already assumption, Henry mentioned about for the non-teacher, how the assumptions are based on an experience study that was done for the period 2011 to 2016. So I'm assuming, we'll be doing, an experience study in 2021, and that would be the base for assumption demographic for the non-teacher. For the certified, is technically, basically, we would use the Connecticut Teacher System assumption. There's a new assumption that's out there now for the period ending 2019. So we'd be looking at this and make sure that we are putting those new assumptions. There's other assumptions that are specific to the OPEB, such as participation, active when they retire, how many are assumed to elect coverage. I think we will be looking at this. You do have an assumption of 100%, basically assuming all the active when they retire would elect coverage. There is some caution down in the police. It's about maybe 50%. So we can look at the experience and maybe, if it's appropriate, maybe we can revise the assumption. On the Board of Ed, one of the assumptions is on the for the non-Medicare certified, the folks who are hired pre 1986, who don't qualify for Medicare. So basically, the idea is the statute here in Connecticut, they would continue on the active plan. And typically, these guys would be very expensive. There's no medical integration, and they are very expensive. And I think we'll be looking at the assumption. I believe the actuary now has a 15% assumption. We should look at this and see if this is sort of appropriate. And this is a closed group. Over time, should fade away. So these are basically the some of the highlights for the OPEB plan from a health and OPEB standpoint. Tammy, do you want to talk about the fees? Next slide.
Sure. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am terribly sorry I was late. I was taking my dog out to get him all settled so he did not interrupt our call. And obviously he managed to interrupt our call anyway. But I hope that by virtue of my being 20 minutes late, you've got a good indication of one of Siegel's primary advantages, which is we have a depth of resources, and when you can't get one person, you will always be able to get someone else, and that person is likely to be as good as or better as the first person. And from what I gathered listening to Henry, he did a great job covering the things that we needed to talk about on the pension side. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm in the middle of something, sorry. And yes, a few distractions. Anyway, I'm going to change the slide. We can talk briefly about fees, and then I will summarize a little bit broader. Basically, our message on fees is always the same. We want to work with you and partner with you, and if you like us and you want to work with us, we don't want fees to be an obstacle. So we have put together our numbers here, which is consistent with what we put in our written proposal, but we are always available to discuss, if you have an area that you think is either not competitive or will take less time or more time than what we have asked at, we're perfectly willing to work with you on that. Similarly with the bills, we have some clients who really are not that interested in seeing the detail, that are on a, annual retainer, and we send them bills quarterly and basically say, here's your quarterly bill. Other clients that want to know the reason for every single quarter hour that's recorded, what we were doing, why we were doing it, and we can send, a catalog of bills, and we have clients that are in the middle. So just like the fees, we want to set it up in whatever fashion works best for you. So that is big picture on the fees, and I'd be happy to discuss, in more detail. We did assume for bidding purposes, that we would do an annual valuation for the town plan and the police and fire plan. With the town plan being frozen, it's quite possible that, we could move that to a biannual basis, just like the OPEB, and either do some risk projections in the interim year, or just, do roll forwards, because with the plan being frozen, you're not going to get a lot of year-to-year bouncing around that you might have for an ongoing plan. And it's always something that we encourage clients to think about, particularly public plans where things are very stable. And there may be an opportunity, even if you don't do a full valuation in the off year, maybe you do some additional projections or risk studies, the type that Henry was talking about. And that may have as much value as doing another valuation, quite honestly. So I don't know how much you guys have already talked about. And again, I apologize for that. Jump in and ask questions if you want. But to summarize, if you flip to the last slide, I guess what we want to emphasize is that we really know Connecticut. Obviously, Henry has a great deal of experience in Connecticut. I have any number of plans that I work on with Henry. Sam and Terry, know the health side inside and out. And again, as we hopefully demonstrated by my absence, we do have a depth of experience. For people who are here, plus a number of people who are not on the call with us, who can help with anything that comes up, really. Compliance is really one of Siegel's ace in the holes. We kind of feel like it's a no-cost service to our clients because everybody gets it if they're our client. Updates on legislative matters, help with anything that comes up administratively. Basically, from my experience at Siegel, and I have worked at very small companies and very big companies, Siegel is the right size because we know each other. We're able to support each other. We can find people who can help with problems. We had a plan in Connecticut that had vested its assets primarily with an insurance company. And that insurance company decided they didn't want to write checks for the plan anymore. It wasn't obvious what was going to happen there because obviously did need to keep the checks going to the retirees. We had to figure out how to make that happen, and we were able to pull in some administrative people to evaluate what the contract currently provided, what the terms were for getting out of it, and we're able to, within a period of, I think, about 60 to 90 days, able to work through that so that the pensioners themselves didn't ever know that, there was a risk that, their check wasn't going to come because the insurance company decided they weren't going to be in the check writing business anymore. And that's an example of just things that happen that, you can never predict what might come up, but I can assure you that when it comes up, if the four of us who are on this call can't answer it, we're going to be able to find somebody who can answer it and can, keep you going day to day, no matter what. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. I might ask you to take down the presentation so we can kind of all see each other.
Perfect.
I appreciate that. Would anyone like to ask a question? Anyone like to go first?
Sure, this is a great opportunity with 3 actuaries in the middle of the night.
But energy's beginning to peter out. I'd like, Tom, would you like to go?
Yeah, I have a question. One of the points which was made, Henry, I think it was something you had said that you prefer not to interface directly with employees, but rather to direct town HR personnel to have those discussions. Is that because you don't have the arms and legs, or is it more a matter of more a tactical approach?
That's a good question. So essentially, excuse me, we have to be careful with any, usually when a participant's calling, they're asking maybe very detailed questions. And so for those detailed questions and maybe some gray areas, it could be open for legal interpretation. So in some instances, we may respond to the, your HR staff and work with them and say, hey, this is kind of a gray area. You may want to get your attorneys involved. The other end of the spectrum is that it may be a very simple and basic question. And at our billable rates that may be very high, the billable rates could be, it's a bit of a challenge to answer those questions. So it's a, frankly, it's interesting. I have personally gotten calls from individual participants because, my name is out there. They can Google me, they can look up my phone number, and I've gotten the calls, and we'll certainly talk to them. That's just not the preferred way, because we're not really the direct fiduciaries of the plan or the plan administrator. So from a plan administration standpoint, it's really the answers are best coming from the town.
Right, and I would just add, you know your people, and I dare to say that within any organization, there are some people who are very easy to work with and some people who are, perhaps more interested in causing trouble. We don't know those things, and that might, also impact the types of answers we give people. But certainly we can help you provide materials that will communicate with people. We can assist in training sessions. We've done seminars with, people who are 5 years away from retirement to just talk about some retirement planning issues at a broad level. What sort of impact does your defined contribution or savings plan have? What is your defined benefit plan providing? How does that fit in with your post-retirement needs and also your medical expenses? So it's not that we don't have the resources to help you and to even help the participants directly. It's just that we don't see our primary role in being the interface with the employees.
Okay, well, it so happens I just and the company I work for has fidelity to do those kinds of things. They, because they have people at a certain level that'll be able to get on the phone with me and go through. There's many things you have to do. Leaving a large company, which I did. And so it seems to work out. But what it is, just to clarify one point, I wouldn't want to take a billable time at a high level person to answer simple questions that a model could provide an answer for. It may come back to, is that the case of, not enough entry-level people available to get on the phone with retirees and just talk about, here's what your pension is based on, and that's end of 2022, end of 2023, something like that.
I think that it's not a question of having the available staff, but I also look a little bit that if you have somebody talking to a person who's making plans for retirement, you might not want to be talking to that 25-year-old who can answer a simple question like, what amount of service and what benefit you'll have, but you might want someone who's, at a mid-level or a higher level and, can take into consideration questions that the retiree may have. I think from our perspective, what we see most often that's really useful to people is individual benefit statements on a total compensation basis. And then, follow-up questions. And if there are questions that don't have, real obvious parent answers, we're perfectly fine to, work with you, sort of go over what the issues are that we see, or have Megan, who's our compliance person, who, did a lot of this stuff when she was working with the city of Baltimore, contribute in that respect. It's just, we don't really want to be the lead person when an individual is calling. Not that we won't talk to somebody, but that, our relationship is really with you as a board, not with the individual. And so there are some differences in how you handle those things.
And I would just add real quick here that as far as a participant coming in, multiple participants coming in and asking questions about, what if scenarios for retirement, that's very common. And so I worked several years ago with one of my longtime clients where there was a lot of back and forth. And frankly, the HR person was kind of getting overwhelmed with that. So we helped build a pension estimator for them so that the person, the HR person could quickly model all the different scenarios for an individual employee. And Siegel actually does have a tool that we could do something like that, both for the HR department and then even for the participant levels, where the participants could go in on an individual basis and personally go into a website and model their own, different future benefits under different scenarios.
I'd like to ask a question regarding kind of the fees that you laid out. You showed kind of you call them kind of the baseline fees. I'm curious about the add-on services and whether or not any of those, including that risk study, if any of that was included into the RFP submission you had from a fees perspective.
I'm going to take that, Henry, because you were digging into the alternatives there and different tasks.
Yeah, it's a good question. So like Tammy was kind of saying, the fee schedule that was shown is more or less right from the proposal. And it's based on kind of, obviously our high overview of the plans, what we have to work with. And like we said, we don't want fees to get in the way of working with you guys. So if you need more services and you anticipate there's a lot of back and forth, then a lot of those services could be added on. And I'm kind of speaking more so on the administrative side that we could certainly do that. We can, do a lot more benefit statements. We could do, total compensation statements, and those are add-on fees. One thing that Siegel tries to stay away from is supplemental billing. So every time you pick up the call, we don't necessarily, we don't want to bill you an extra 15 minutes here or there. So our fees, sometimes can look on the higher side, but they're more all encompassing. So it's you're not surprised by all of these supplemental bills. So again, we'll work with you, whatever you feel you want for core services or supplemental services, we can adjust the fee schedule accordingly.
Can you help me understand kind of for like the, a pension plan about our size, what those supplemental bills might look like as a percentage of those base fees? I mean, is it another 20%, another 30%, another 5%? Give us a ballpark.
It's tough to say based on, what, if you
What
want
extra things you might ask for.
Yeah, all of the extras. So I'll give you an example, like the stochastic modeling. That could be, and Tammy, you may know too, if that's in the, $10,000 to $15,000 range just for one set of stochastic modeling, because there's a lot of complicated calculations that go into that.
Okay.
Whereas if you're looking at, annual benefit statements, maybe that's only a few $1,000s depending on the amount of detail you want in those benefit statements.
Okay, I mean, we spent a lot of time going through the RFP submissions and the reviews, and it would have been nice to have seen almost like maybe a rate sheet in a little more detail, because we're really trying to compare. We're really trying to figure our way forward. So thank you for that. A risk study is a little different from a stochastic study, or is it the same?
Good question. The risk study is different. So I would say a risk study is more of a bigger picture, and a stochastic model is to answer some of the questions surrounding the risk involved with the plan.
Okay, Gotcha. Thank you.
Right. And the one thing that I would repeat is that one place where the risk study really can fit within the existing fees is if you do a risk study some years instead of doing an actuarial evaluation. And in fact, it might, depending on what the extensiveness of that study is, it might even be cheaper than doing an actuarial evaluation, because when we have to do evaluation, it's a whole process of collecting the data and the assets and making sure it's all good and running the liabilities and putting a report together and all of the mandatory disclosures. Whereas if we were going to do a risk study following evaluation, say we did evaluation in 2021, decided things look pretty good, and in 2022 we wanted to do some analysis of risks, we wouldn't have to regather data for 2022 and rerun liabilities. We'd start with what we already had from the 2021 valuation, and then we would work with you to say, what sort of risks do we want to evaluate? Well, certainly investment risk, and that's where, you work with you and your own input as to what might happen over the next, 5, 10, 20 years, but also things like, what if a bunch of people retire? Or what if we hire new people? And what do those things look like? So, a risk study could be 5 pages, it could be 3 pages. And sometimes you do the 5 pages to decide if you need the 50 pages. And if you're only doing 5 pages, it's not a real expensive task. Probably it's less than performing the annual evaluation. If you do 50 pages, it's probably going to be more than the cost of evaluation. So all of it is sort of we want to do what meets your needs, but we want to be sensitive to the fees. And even though Henry was bouncing a little bit, my own personal experience is that in Siegel, our supplemental bills are seldom comparable to our ongoing retainers. They tend to be, if I were to pick a number, probably in the 20 to 30% of our fees on the high end, and a lot of times far less than that.
Okay. No, thank you for that. That helps. That helps me a lot. Thank you.
Honestly, we don't bill for little supplemental stuff. Like if somebody calls and says, what if the rate of return next year is, 9%? We're not going to send you a bill for that. We're just going to run it through and give the answer. If you call and say, can you give me a stochastic projection with the likelihood of, being 100% funded in 10 years, we're going to want to bill you for that. But we're going to talk to you about what we think that costs too. So it's not going to be a surprise situation.
Would anyone else like to ask a question? We're running up on our time limit here this evening. I want to make sure any other questions are put on the floor. Chris?
Sorry, I sound like a broken record, but so again, if we hire you guys would work exclusively for us. You would be our resource. Tell us how in other situations or other clients you interact with maybe other actuaries from the town or other bodies that may question your analysis or question what you guys present to us, and how do you advocate for us or advocate what our goals are in comparison to maybe what some conflicting goals would be?
That's a good question. I was actually thinking about the relationship with the town's asset advisor. So the asset advisor is a common partner with Siegel, because obviously how the assets are invested impacts the assumed rate of return and therefore the liabilities associated with that. So we frequently work with the asset advisor, and they may come up with an expected return of say 6%, and knowing that again Connecticut town budgets are tricky and tough. We work with the town to help set your assumptions and use something that's reasonable. So that's kind of the Chris, I think maybe you're asking about like the pushback of how we can advocate for you. We frequently work with the asset advisors and say, hey, what can we do to try to get everybody in agreement? It's really trying to bring a consensus of what's a reasonable set of assumptions to use.
Let me go on the other side of that real quick though. So maybe it's not the asset advisor, but maybe it's the town saying our assumptions are X. their assumptions are, we'd like it to be Y. How do you guys do it on that side of the equation?
Right. So first and foremost, if you're our client, you're our client. So we're going to have a professional responsibility to talk to the town's actuaries if they want to talk to them, or maybe the union actuaries, whatever. But our agreement is with you, and you are our, focus point. So if we get asked to discuss a plan change for the, firemen when they're negotiating or whatever, we are going to be completely going through you. We've had situations where in negotiations, we will do calculations or advise for our client, which is one side of the table. We've had situations where our client trusts us and would rather have us involved than a party, where they say, yeah, you can do calculations for us and you can do calculations for the other side as well. But it's going to be how you want the relationship to work. And if there's pushback from, the auditors, we have worked with a lot of auditing firms. We know what certain firms like and what certain firms are sensitive to. Some are super sensitive to the mortality assumption, even though maybe the interest rate is driving more of the cost. But, we have relationships with all of those people. And it's in our interest to make those good relationships, but it's even more so in our interest. We're supporting you. We work for you, not for them. We're going to do everything we can to be professional and cordial, but we're going to be on your side because you're the client.
Yeah, I just want to step in here. We don't envision the town having a different actuary from JRIB. I mean, our goal is that we are working together, but conflicts invariably do arise. And
Exactly.
how you handle the conflict is really where, I think, to Chris's question, that's something we're very sensitive to.
Yeah, so typically what we would is, well, there are these actuarial standards of practice, which Siegel is very engaged with, that really define like how you're supposed to work with other professionals. And typically what we would do is we'd start out with a conversation with those professionals, either with your engagement or without, depending, whether you wanted us to just take care of it or whether you wanted to be a participant in that. We'd compare notes. We know that different actuaries do things different ways. And we know that there's no one right answer to any question, that there's a range of answers. Generally, what I have found when I'm working with another actuary or another advisor is that we may not be able to agree that the answer is 3 million, but we may very well be able to agree that the answer is between 2.5 million and 3.5 million. And that's the sort of thing that, you just work through with all of the various parties. Sometimes it's a difference of perspective on assumptions. Sometimes there's actually some material differences between how we would model certain things and a different company would model those things. And then we sit down and we talk about it and, come to terms like either you're right or we're right, or we're both partly right, and, adjust accordingly.
Thank you. Guys, I want to thank you. I want to be really cognizant of our time. We still have a fair bit of meeting left ahead of us this evening, and it's 10 of 10. I think if we were in person, we could be elbowing each other and passing some coffee around. But I just want to thank you for coming in. Thank you for submitting your response to our RFP. I wish you the very best, and we'll turn it around really quickly for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions, obviously just give us a call and we'll get back.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, I'm going to ask the JRIB to stay on here. What's doing here? Chris, you still?
Chris, have to know that we didn't notice on the agenda going to executive meeting.
Pardon me? I didn't hear that.
We didn't notice on the agenda that you were going to go to executive session, so that could be an issue.
Oh.
If anybody sees it.
Well, I don't mind having the conversation in open. If anyone else,
Carolyn?
yeah.
Okay. Did you talk to the attorney Baldwin at all
No,
about? Okay.
no. I mean, this is, because this is an RFP process, right? When we went through the town's FOIA training and meeting handling training, right? There's special rules around RFP related discussions.
Right, but executive session there's some rules. Is Jim Hazelkamp on? Jim, are you on? Jim's actually an attorney as well, so.
Hello?
Hi, Jim, so Chris just told the board that we didn't notice the executive session on the agenda. Can you speak to that and what that means?
Well, the biggest issue is somebody challenging that you couldn't go into executive session because you didn't post it that way. So I'm not, can you hear me? I'm
Yes,
challenged.
everyone can hear you.
I'm challenged when it comes to muting on these things. So, that's the challenge. Somebody could say you can't go into executive session. If you did, the meeting would be void. But, certainly if you're in open session, there's not an issue. It's just whether you now go into executive session and it wasn't posted, whether somebody could claim the meeting was improper.
So, all right.
Well, so all right.
So what would you recommend, Jim? Can we go into executive session?
Well, the risks are somebody requests that the meeting be voided. That's the potential risk.
One of the applicants.
Well, anybody, really anybody could file a Freedom of Information complaint. I'm not suggesting that's likely because it's usually not, but from the standpoint of what's the remedy for a meeting that's not properly held, it's usually to void the votes in the meeting. But I'm not any FOI expert. That's
right.
I think
Right,
the issue
so-
it could have been to executive session. It just wasn't posted that way.
Right, and FOI, FOIA, I don't think, if I remember anything from the FOIA training that we did, 2 months ago, it was RFP submissions or things are outside of the scope of FOIA because you're, for, whatever reason, you will know better than I will. But I think
Well,
RFPs kids are different.
Okay, so if you go to executive session, I have to go off of the public line has to be disconnected and I'm going to stop recording. Is that what you want me to do?
So wait a minute, just so we're clear, there has to be a motion to go into executive session, seconded, voted on, and then we have to say we're going.
Right.
And then when we come out, we have to vote to come out and we have to say no votes were taken if there were no votes taken when we come back out.
Just real quick, I apologize. So worst case scenario is someone does complain. We do all this. We go to the executive session. We make a decision. We come back out. We vote. The worst case scenario is we just have to vote again to call it another meeting. Is that the major penalty here?
I think that's usually the remedy.
I'm sorry?
That's the typical remedy if there's a violation.
Well, the concern is we're going to want to discuss, the fee proposals and, there's competitive information in there that is sensitive to any RFP and bids. And so can I ask, before we make a decision on that, can I just see kind of a nod of heads from tonight? Do we feel you have kind of a sense of how you would like to vote? Or just raise your hand if you have a strong feeling of how you might want to vote. Or not. So we're pretty well. It looks like we've made up. We've gotten enough to be able to have a good conversation with a lot of people have made up their minds. I'm more than happy to have this in the open. First, Selectwoman, are you okay if we kind of have the discussion about the merits, the pros and cons of the different ones, which make the most sense, or would you prefer that we take this take the risk of pulling it into executive session and then coming back out, understanding these are RFPs? I mean, if the remedy is we have to take the vote again. Chris?
We have the public line on here right now. So do you really want to discuss these three applicants with not knowing who's listening in on the public?
Yeah, I mean, we'd really like to be able to discuss the three applicants.
I think, Carolyn, hey, it's Jack. I personally think it would be best to go into executive session, and then, if we get called on it, like Chris said, we have to come back and, redo the vote. We already know what the outcome is going to be at that point. If the penalty isn't any more severe than that, I think it's not much of a risk that we're taking.
I think it's kind of apropos that the reason we're kind of doing this is because that situation exactly happened. That kind of predicated this change.
All right, guys, so let's do it. We're going to pull into executive session. May I ask? We need
I'll
a
make the motion.
Tom McCarthy's made the motion. A second for the motion?
Eric Caliper, I'll second the motion.
All in favor of going to executive session, say aye. Raise your hands.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Okay.
Guys, I'd like to make a motion, making a motion to move out of executive session. May I have a second?
Second.
Tom McCarthy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. We have resumed. We're out of executive session. We voted out of executive session. No votes were taken in executive session. It's 10:53 p.m. We would like, now that we've resumed the meeting, may I ask someone please to make a motion that we will vote on? Tom?
I make a motion, we accept Millman as a new actuarial for the town of Fairfield.
Have a second? Eric Caliper to second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Do we have any abstentions?
Abstain.
First Selectwoman Kupchak has abstained. Do we have any opposed? No opposed. All right, seeing that, guys, the motion has passed. With that, may I please ask for a motion to adjourn?
Oh, thank God.
Motion.
Second, please.
Who said that? Oh, thank God.
I will second it.
Thank
I
you.
will second it.
Thank you.
My wife already kicked me out of the bedroom.
All right, guys, we're done. Thank you for hanging in there tonight.